Hi, my name is Ujjwal and today I want to talk to you about auto layouts in the most simple manner possible so that you never ever get confused with auto layouts in the future. I'll start by creating a rectangle. I'll create two more copies of it and I'll select them all and hit Shift plus A. Now this converts these three rectangles into an auto layout. So now here I can change the direction of this auto layout. If I want to keep it horizontal, I can keep it as horizontal, or I can change it to vertical. So depending upon my need, I can keep this to either vertical or horizontal layout. For this video, I'll keep it as horizontal. Now there are three very important concepts in auto layout which you need to understand. One is hug contents, the other is fill container, and the third is fixed width. If I inspect one of these rectangles, I'll see that the property that is set here is fixed. What does that mean? That means that if I'm going to change, the size or the width of the auto layout container, it's not impacting the size of these rectangles. Why? Because they're fixed at a width. Now, if I were to change that and set it to fill container, you'll realize that it is now taking up the remaining space after these two rectangles to fill up the rest of the container. So if I now change the size, you can see that one of these rectangles is now filling up the rest of the space. Within this layout, I can set up the space between these elements. So right now it's at 19, I'll set it up to 32, or I can change it to 16. Another thing that we'll realize is because these two rectangles are now at fixed width and this is filling the container, this is actually adjusting to the space in between. So if I set up that space to be, let's say 100, these two rectangles are taking the same amount of space because they are at fixed width, but the last container is actually filling the rest of the space. Once I have these rectangles in an auto layout with whatever space in between that I've defined, I can also add left, right, and top and bottom padding to it. For example, if right now you can see that there is no padding outside of these containers, so I can add left, right padding by just simply adding values here and here, so that you can see I just had a fill here. So this is the padding that is now being applied. So I have a padding and I have space in between. Let's make that equal so that it looks more consistent. So this is how you can use the right panel to add padding and add space in between as well. Another important concept here is the constraints panel. Now right now, if I have to resize my entire container, I can see that my elements are sticking to the left side and in the center. Why is that happening? Because the constraints are set that way. If I change these constraints, my elements are then going to move according to those constraints. So this is going to be critical once you're making complex layouts, which we are going to discuss further. Let's try and understand hug contents now. We'll do that through a button. So let's add a text here, call it button, and let's hit our shortcut with a Shift plus A. Then let's add a fill color here. Let's reverse these colors for better visibility. So I'll change the text color to white and I'll change the background color or the button color to a dark gray. Alright, let's also add some corner radius just so that it looks a little better. Okay, so by default, this frame is now set to hug for both horizontal and vertical spacing. That means that if I'm going to change any text within the button, let's call it, proceed or anything, the frame is going to derive the size from the text inside. Why? Because it's hugging the contents inside. Now, if I were to change this to fixed width, now whatever I write, it's not going to change the width of this parent container or the button container. So this essentially is what hug content would mean. Now that we understand these basic concepts, let's try to move on to the next phase and let's try to design a layout entirely from auto layouts. Alright, so let's try to create a layout like this one by just using auto layouts. Alright, so let's start with our first layer, which is probably, and I'm just going to use the text from this image. So let's call this mountain trekking. Then the next layer will be about location. So I'll just use the location as Ladakh and probably use an icon. Let me bring out an icon from my plugins. I sometimes use feather icons. So let's just bring an icon here. We could use a pin and then I can just keep it here. We can put it in auto layout as we go. And then the other layers that we need is how many days and nights it will be for. So I'll just write 5 nights and 4 days. Alright, the next layer is about the price. So I'll just use rupees 5,000 and then there are stars and explore buttons. Let's get on that later. Let's first understand how do we align these. Okay, so for our title font, let's just change the font size to 16, and this is basically our title. The icon is a little big, so let's change the size probably to a 16 by 16 and change the stroke. And I'll change this, I'll keep this gray color that I'm going to use as a secondary color maybe. Use the same color. Now what I can do is I can take the icon and take the text, again hit Shift A. So now this is in an auto layout. Now here the space would probably be 4. And now I can start stacking my content one top of each other. So I'll take this frame 1, which is my location, and I'll stack this with my title. Cool. And the spacing would probably be 16 for now, and we can change this later. For 5 days, 5 nights and 4 days, I'll probably use the same font. The shortcut that I use for copying a text style is Command Option C and Command Option V, and this is a very useful shortcut when you have to quickly add the same text style to another layer, and you can do that for layer styles as well. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to stack this within this auto layout, but I want these two in the same line. So I'm going to do that by selecting them separately within this auto layout frame, again creating an auto layout. So now I've created an auto layout just with these two layers, and I've changed the direction to horizontal. So of course, this looks a little bit off because now I have 3 elements here. So I'll probably need a separator. I'll do that by adding a rectangle here. I use rectangles, and then here you can see this is fixed and fixed. What I'm going to do is I want this separator to take the height of this container. So I'll just use fill container here. I think this is a little bit too light. So maybe we can just use a darker gray. Yeah, I think this looks slightly better, and maybe these two, I think this looks fine. I can use the same color for the icon as well, and for the separator I think we are fine for now. Let's also increase the size for cost, so we'll probably use an 18 and then maybe a medium font. Yeah, I think this looks fine. We can I'm going to cut and paste this into this layout. So now we have these 3 elements happening. I think the spacing is a little too high, so I can just add 8 here. Another thing that you can see here is the button. So we've just discussed how we can create buttons. I'll just use this text layer and call explore. And yeah, we can probably use capital case here. Reduce the font size to 14, 18. Giving the line height as 18, and I'll do a Shift plus A so that I can convert this into a button. And what space will I need? I think 16 and 8 should work. I'm going to fill this with a color. And corner radius, change this to white. Okay, maybe the red color is not going too well. Look at my palette, maybe I can use this purple. Cool. So I think this is coming around, but I'll still want some of this content to distribute differently. So I think one of the things that is happening here is the space between all these elements is equal, which is 16, but I would want to group these 2 elements together. So what I'm going to do is just select these 2, again hit Shift plus A and change the spacing to 8 points. So now these 2 are grouped better. And I think the price can stay as is. And yes, we can add the reviews next to the button. Now I'll add another text layer here, but no, I don't want it inside the button. So I'll just make a copy, and I'll take these 2, select these 2, again Shift plus A and change the direction to right. And then for this particular text layer, I'll try to copy this same style. So again, Command Option C, Command Option V, and I'll write 100 plus reviews. Alright, and maybe underline this as well. And I'll also align this in the center. So I think till now this looks fine. We can go ahead and add an image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a rectangle, and then I'm going to use a plugin which I use generally to add images. Cool. So now we have all these elements coming together. What I'm going to do now is take this image and take my auto layout frame, select both of these and hit Shift plus A. Now we have another auto layout. So this is how we are nesting layouts after layouts, and you can see that there's a lot of nesting that is happening inside, and all of them are there for a purpose. So of course you can do something similar and create complex layouts. Now I'm going to change the spacing here to 16 because I think 16 is all we need. Another thing I realize here is that this container is at fixed width, but I see that this element is actually going outside the container. So what I'm going to do is just change this to hug. So it's accounting for the reviews button, and I'm also going to change the constraints here to center, so that this entire text is now aligned to the center. Or another option that I could take was basically change the image height from fixed to fill container. So what this will do is this will fill the container according to the text that we have here. But I think overall we would need some padding on the text layer itself. So I'll just add that padding here. I'll add vertical padding as 16. So I think we have our card almost ready. One more thing, that within this card I can just add a right padding. I can do that by opening this layer, and I can see that left, top, bottom we have 16, left, right we have 0. So I'll add a right padding as 16, and I'll fill this entire card with a white color. So I think we're almost there. I think one of the things that I would want to change is, the size of this price, maybe increase it a little bit. And I see that the image is misplaced, so maybe I'll just crop it a little bit. Yeah, this looks better. I'll add some curvature, so I'll add a corner radius, maybe 12. Yeah, 12 looks good. And the image is actually not taking that, so I'll just click content. Yeah, I think this looks fine. So there you go, you have a card. And now that this is a very simple example, of course, but now that I have this here, and the rating I've just skipped for now. So now that we have this example, I can make a copy out of this and make another copy and take this entire thing and again hit Shift plus A, the same concept again, and keep the spacing as 16. Now that this is going to be inside of a screen, I can actually use left right padding at 16 and 16 so that this space is created. I can add a fill here for white color, and then I can probably use some shadows here. Okay, one of the things that is happening here is that this is fixed. I think we can do hub contents so that that crop does not happen, and we can of course change these images. Cool. So now we have a listing layout made entirely out of auto layout, and you can of course expand this further and create tables and more complex components using just auto layout. Thank you so much for watching this video till the end, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it was helpful if you were struggling with auto layout. I do intend to make more such videos in the future on other important features and updates on Figma. So like and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Thank you and have a nice day.